It begins with silence. A rocking chair creaks in an empty kitchen. A pie cools on the table, its golden crust concealing the bitter metallic tang of arsenic. Upstairs, a cradle rocks without a child. The family that once filled this farmhouse with voices lies buried in shallow, hurried graves behind the church. No one asked why they died. No one asked who fed them their last meal. Her name was Agatha Dyer, the grandmother of the town, the woman who prayed at every funeral and blessed every newborn. But what no one knew was that her prayers were curses. Cedar Grove, North Carolina, 1912. A town of farmers and worshippers, a place where neighbors rarely locked their doors and strangers were fed before they were questioned. Their world was ruled by two things: tobacco fields and the church steeple. And in every gathering, Agatha Dyer was there, her hair white as the church's clapboard siding, her voice soft as a hymn. She baked the bread for communion. She watched the children while mothers worked the fields. She was trusted more than the sheriff, more than the preacher, and that's how she could kill without ever being suspected. The Garrison family were the first. Neighbors said they fell ill suddenly, sweating through fevers, their skin turning ashen. Within 3 days, the mother, father, and 3 children were dead. The doctor declared it swamp fever. The undertaker sealed the coffins quickly, but the town forgot that the Garrisons had shared supper with Agatha the night before. Forgotten or ignored, because in Cedar Grove, no one wanted to believe that evil could come with gray hair and a grandmother's smile. In 1931, a discovery was made in the parsonage attic, a leather-bound ledger, brittle with age. Inside, names written in a flowing feminine hand, dates, dosages. The Garrisons were there, listed like debts tallied. Beside the names were strange marks, crosses split down the middle, circles enclosing jagged lines. And notes that didn't sound like grief, but ritual, offered to the mother, their breath carried as incense. The church burned the ledger before historians could copy it, but one apprentice saved a single page. He swore it was proof that the town's trusted widow had fed a hunger older than the Bible. Whispers of Agatha lived on in nursery rhymes. Old recordings surfaced decades later, capturing children's voices. Don't eat the pie, don't drink the tea. Grandma's got a secret she won't let you see. Scholars dismissed it as folklore, a ghost story children made up. But oral tradition carries memory where history is censored. The rhyme dated back to the 1910s, precisely when Cedar Grove's death rate mysteriously tripled. Why didn't anyone question the deaths? Because the church buried more than bodies. Pastors preached that pestilence was God's punishment. Sheriffs signed off on natural causes. The undertaker sealed coffins before families could look inside. Agatha was the seamstress of death, but the church stitched the shroud. Cedar Grove depended on her image, the God-fearing widow who embodied purity. To accuse her would be to accuse the church itself of blindness, or worse, complicity. The most damning story came from the orphanage records. In 1915, 8 children died in 1 week. The matron wrote they had all been fed a special pie, a gift from Widow Dyer. Their tiny graves were dug behind the school. No doctor was called. Years later, one surviving boy, adopted before that summer, testified that the pie had tasted sweet, but left his tongue burning. He was never believed. During renovations in the 1950s, workmen found a crypt under the sanctuary floor. Inside were bones, far more than Cedar Grove's population could account for. Infants, children, adults, dozens stacked together. The records were destroyed. The church sealed the chamber, and the town told outsiders it had been a forgotten family plot. But the workers whispered. Some said the bones were blackened around the teeth, poison seared into the enamel. Those who saw the ledger page described the symbols in its margins. They were neither Christian nor occult in any recognizable sense. Anthropologists suggested they resembled fertility cult markings from Europe's pre-Christian era. Agatha, it seemed, was not simply a murderer. She was a carrier of something old ritual knowledge preserved in women who poisoned under the guise of caregiving. Ancient mother worship hidden in recipes and lullabies. Why didn't the town expose her? Because they benefited, fewer mouths to feed during poor harvests, land suddenly available after whole families succumbed to fever. Widowers and widows remarried, consolidating farms. Agatha's killings were disguised as divine pruning. The town grew wealthier from her harvest of the weak, and so they let her continue, until her death in 1921, when she was buried with honors beside the very church she had filled with bones. In 1974, a farmer repairing his barn roof found a wrapped bundle hidden in the rafters. Inside was a fragment of a diary, its ink faded but legible. It was Agatha's hand. "The bread is not bread, but flesh. The milk is not milk, but blood. Each mouth I close is another hymn sung to her." The fragment was quietly purchased by a collector and disappeared from public view. What kind of woman kills dozens while appearing saintly? Psychologists point to communal narcissism, deriving power by appearing selfless while secretly feeding an appetite for control. But Agatha was not simply narcissistic. Survivors said her eyes changed when she prayed, going cold, fixed, as though she were listening to something behind the walls. Some believe Agatha's knowledge was inherited. Her mother, said to be a healer, was whispered to have cured illnesses with teas that often left patients dead. In rural America, the line between midwife and poisoner was thin. It is possible Agatha carried an unbroken chain of matrilineal ritual stretching back to Europe's cunning women. One survivor, long after escaping Cedar Grove, wrote a chilling testimony. "At night we heard her humming. It was not a church hymn. It was low, guttural, like words in a language we didn't know. She hummed as we ate, and the food was sweet, but it hurt. And when children cried, she whispered, shhh. The mother is feeding." People remembered her smile most of all, a grandmotherly curve of lips, soft and reassuring. Survivors said it never faltered, not even when coffins were lowered, as if every death was confirmation, not tragedy. To this day, Cedar Grove families claim their elders warned, "Never trust a woman who smiles at every funeral." In the 1980s, the grandson of Sheriff McKinnon confessed before his death that his grandfather had known. He claimed the sheriff himself had partaken of Agatha's meals and survived only because she spared him. Why? Because his silence was her protection. He buried death certificates that listed unknown fever and ordered coffins sealed. Folklorists uncovered recipes attributed to Agatha's healing remedies: sweet syrups laced with foxglove, pies with deadly nightshade, biscuits dusted with arsenic. Yet each was written in the language of caregiving. For cough, for sleeplessness, for teething, medicine and murder indistinguishable. Aerial surveys in the 2000s revealed depressions behind the churchyard inconsistent with known graves. Excavations were denied. But locals know whole families vanished from records. Their land was claimed, their names erased. They lie in soil where no one is allowed to dig. Those who grew up in Cedar Grove say the land still feels wrong. Pets vanish, babies sicken. Elders say the town carries a debt unpaid, that Agatha's covenant still binds them. Some believe her spirit lingers, smiling, waiting for the next offering. The widow of Cedar Grove was buried in sacred ground. Her gravestone reads, "Beloved mother of the town," but beneath the stone lies not a saint, but a predator cloaked in prayer. Her story was erased, her crimes hidden, but evil that wears the face of grandmotherhood never truly dies. And somewhere in kitchens across America, pies still cool on windowsills, sweetened with sugar. And something far more bitter,